Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is perfectly bouncing from this exact line of support after that latest dump, not only in the price of Bitcoin, but also the stock market dumping over the last one day after that latest Fed meeting, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And I'll be talking about what Jerome Powell, the boss of the Fed, said about Bitcoin. And on top of that, Bitcoin is just now confirming a new bearish divergence. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video. So definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before we take a look at the Bitcoin charts today, we need to talk about the news today, because over the last one day, of course, we saw that FOMC meeting, also known as a Fed meeting, where the Federal Reserve did indeed cut interest rates by 25 basis points, also known as 0.25%. And if you watched my last Bitcoin video just yesterday, you'll know that that was the expected outcome, and that was the outcome that was being priced into the market, which means as soon as this number right here got released, we didn't really see any major impact on the market, at least the moment this got released. But around half an hour after this number got released, of course, we saw the Jerome Powell press conference as usual, and that was when we started to see the markets obviously being impacted by this latest Fed meeting. So not only did Bitcoin have a bit of a dump over the last one day, but this is the S&P 500 right here on the daily time frame. And if we're looking at yesterday's daily candle, we saw a nice big red candle. And so the overall markets had a bit of a dump over the last one day after that Fed meeting. It wasn't just crypto, it was also the stock market. And now there was another reason why Bitcoin in particular might have had a dump, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But the reason why the overall market had a bit of a sell-off following that Fed meeting was to do with interest rate expectations for next year. Because, of course, we saw the expected outcome yesterday for yesterday's Fed meeting of a 25 basis point rate cut. But a lot of people next year were pricing in for interest rates to be cut more than what is now being expected. And so a lot of traders, a lot of investors were expecting maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4 interest rate cuts, but let's just say like 3 interest rate cuts in 2025. Whereas right now, as I've recorded in this video, the market is only pricing in just 1 interest rate cut in all of 2025. Just 1 25 basis point rate cut. And so, of course, this change in expectations, where a lot of people before this Fed meeting, before Jerome Powell gave his press conference just yesterday, a lot of people expecting more rate cuts next year, whereas right now no longer expecting all of those rate cuts and only expecting just 1 rate cut next year. That process of pricing in for less rate cuts was bearish and affected the market that way. And so that was one of the main reasons as to why the overall market had a bit of a sell-off over the last one day after that Fed meeting, especially when Jerome Powell started to speak. And of course, another thing which I shared in real time as it happened over on my Twitter, another thing that happened that Jerome Powell said during his press conference was that the Federal Reserve is not allowed to own any Bitcoin. And this simply came up when a reporter asked about a Bitcoin reserve or buying Bitcoin. And Jerome Powell simply said the Federal Reserve is not buying Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve is not even allowed to own any Bitcoin. And so as soon as the market reacted to that, of course, we did see a continued dump in the price of Bitcoin in the short term, with people just panicking with this happening in the short term. But of course, with those of you that know about the Federal Reserve and the US government, you'll know that it's not the Federal Reserve that would be buying Bitcoin anyway. It would likely be the US Treasury, the US government, because the Federal Reserve is technically not a part of the US federal government. And so ultimately, this was kind of like a nothing burger. But with that being said, the market still reacted to this obviously in a bearish direction. This was the stock market due to those other reasons. But of course, we did see a bit of a sell-off in the price of Bitcoin due to this as well. But all of this is really talking about the shorter term when it comes to Bitcoin and stocks. Of course, when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture for the price of Bitcoin on this weekly time frame, technically speaking, that slight little dump over the last one day is barely even visible on this weekly time frame, as we can see. And so ultimately, we're technically still in a larger bull market on the weekly Bitcoin chart, and this will likely continue into 2025 if history is any indication here. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, looking at the weekly Bitcoin MACD, As of right now, this is still sitting in the green, indicating a bullish momentum or a larger bullish market right now. But with that being said, like I've said recently here on the channel, we've lost a small amount of bullish momentum just recently in the shorter term in this indicator, telling us we're slowing down a little bit in the short term, which is to be expected. This is pretty much exactly what we saw exactly 1 year ago. After a big bullish move with bullish momentum in this indicator, we saw a bit of a slowdown, losing some bullish momentum, and that played out over around 1 to 2 months of mostly just some sideways price action, not really a major crash, but short-term little pullbacks, short-term bounces, things like that for 1 to 2 months before ultimately continuing the bull run later on. And right now we're seeing something somewhat similar, a bit of a slowdown in the short term during a larger bull run. And if we're taking a look at this 4-day Bitcoin chart right now, this super trendy indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bullish market. So overall, on the larger timeframes, technically things are still currently looking bullish despite that little short-term dump over the last 1 to 2 days. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, obviously, as of right now, the price of Bitcoin is currently retesting this previous 1618 Fibonacci extension level, which was sitting at around $102,000 per Bitcoin. And recently we confirmed one weekly candle close above 102K, which was a bullish signal confirming the breakout. But right now, as of recording this video, we're currently trading at very close to 102,000. So essentially coming in for a retest. And for the bulls out there, this will be an important level to hold above on the price chart. If we can actually simply just see this retest and bounce from this level and not confirm any weekly candle closes well below 102,000, then in that case, we're still looking good, at least on this chart right here. But of course, if we see a weekly candle close back below 102,000, which in case you're wondering, the next weekly candle close is in around 3.5 days from now. And if that confirms below 102K, then in that case, of course, that'll be a bit of a short-term bearish signal to pay attention to. And with that being said, if this breakout continues, the next major price target is sitting at around $113,000 per Bitcoin based on this 2618 Fibonacci extension level on the 3-day Bitcoin chart. So 113K is still that next price target beyond 102,000. But once again, right now, we're currently coming in for a retest of that level. And just before talking about some other important Bitcoin charts today, first, if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I take a lot of my trades right now over on BitNex. So make sure to leave a link to BitNex below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim an exclusive deposit bonus that's only available using that link. So if you simply just click that link to make your account, you can get a $20 bonus just by depositing $100 and starting to trade. Or if you deposit $500, you get a $100 bonus. Or if you deposit just 1,000 USDT and start trading, you get a $200 bonus into your new account. And once again, this is only available if you use the link below this video to actually make your BitNex account and then deposit and start trading on that account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link below this video. And also, in case you're wondering, BitNex is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But for whatever reason, if you don't want BitNex, there is also Bybit as another option out there, another exchange I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bybit as well down below this video. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at this Bitcoin chart on the 12-hour time frame, over the last couple of days, we saw a perfect rejection from this line of resistance right here for this ascending parallel channel. And that line of resistance was sitting at around 108,000. And right now it's sitting closer towards around 110,000. And of course, in my last Bitcoin video just yesterday, we were already seeing that rejection right here and coming into contact with this center line, which was sitting at approximately 103,000, give or take. And I mentioned in my last video, if we break below 103K, and especially if we break below 102,000, I said, expect a move down towards 99,000 approximately as the next important level of support below 102,000. And that's exactly what we saw as expected. The moment we broke below 102 to 103,000, we dropped immediately down towards exactly 99,000 pretty much. And then we bounced from pretty much exactly 99,000 based on this ascending line of support sitting at 99K. And also this major area of traded volume acting as strong support in the volume profile indicator sitting in between 96,500 to 99,000 acting as strong support. And so those are the support levels to pay attention to here in the short term, as I mentioned yesterday before we saw this bounce from those levels. But if we were to actually break below these areas on the price chart, of course, in the short term, that would be bad news, potentially for a number of days, maybe even a number of weeks. If we break below around 96,500, once again, that would be bad news, pointing towards a drop potentially back down towards 91 to 92,000. So just remember 91 to 92K as a major level of support coming next if we first break below this area, which as of right now has not happened. But overall, despite this latest dump in the price of Bitcoin, technically speaking, if we're looking at the trend right now, the price is still within a bullish trend. We're currently forming higher lows and higher highs on the price chart in this ascending parallel channel, which technically speaking is the price trending in the bullish direction, despite short-term dumps that we see along the way up. But ultimately, for this bullish trend to continue, at least in the shorter term here, once again, we need to hold above this level of support right here, this ascending line of support, and especially above this area of support in the volume profile indicator in order to remain bullish, at least in the short term. But remember, even if we break below this support right here and bounce at 91K, of course, when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, a move like that would look like that, for example, which is still barely visible on these larger timeframes. So when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, we're still currently bullish, and the short term as of right now is still currently bullish. But if we break this support, then the short term would be a little bit more bearish for a number of days or weeks. And if we're taking a look at this 12-hour Bitcoin chart, of course, over the last one day, we did confirm a break back below this line in the 12-hour Bitcoin RSI. And so, of course, that was a bit of a bearish signal to watch out for in the short term here, because technically speaking, that invalidated that previous breakout, which was a bullish signal once we saw that breakout. But now that we've invalidated the breakout, this is now a bearish signal. And so, of course, we're starting to now see a bit more of a divergence between what we're seeing right now to what we saw exactly 4 years ago. So it's not as similar as to what we saw 4 years ago right now. We're starting to diverge a little bit. But with that being said, it's still somewhat similar to what we saw 4 years ago, because technically speaking, that was still a Bitcoin halving year around December. And this is a Bitcoin halving year around December. We still saw a bearish divergence on the 12-hour time frame, the price struggling in the short term around a major level on the price chart. So still somewhat similar price action in the short term for the price of Bitcoin during a larger bull market. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, technically speaking, we've now confirmed a new bearish divergence on the daily time frame with one strong confirmation signal. Of course, we've seen one candle close right here in the red, a strong candle close in the red, confirming this bearish divergence, because right now we have higher highs confirmed in the price and now lower highs confirmed with that latest daily candle close confirmed in the RSI. And so what this bearish divergence tells us is that we've essentially lost a lot of bullish momentum here in the short term, the same as any bearish divergence, and that we're likely going to see either a bit of a short-term pullback or at the very least, just some choppy sideways price action. So not necessarily a lot of bullish momentum. Once again, we're lacking bullish momentum right now, and instead we're likely going to see a continued cool off, potentially for a number of days or weeks, at least based on this bearish divergence on the daily time frame. And with that being said, if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we've right now taken out those areas of liquidity to the downside that I've been talking about for around 3 to 4 days now on the channel, since all the way back up here. And so first of all, when I first shared these liquidity areas to the downside, when the price was back up towards around 106,000, 107,000, when I shared that around 3 to 4 days ago now, a lot of people were telling me there's no way we could possibly pull back down towards these areas, and that I was just sharing FUD and clickbaiting and fear mongering. But right now, we have indeed seen that pullback that I talked about before this pullback happened, and we've pulled back down to take out that liquidity that was sitting at very close to 99,000, and of course we had an area of liquidity right here at around 103,000. So once we broke below those levels right there, that liquidated long positions in what's called a long squeeze. But the good news, at least for now, is that we have mostly taken out that downside liquidity. As we can see, we still have some liquidity to the downside, sitting at around 97,000 to 98,500. But with that being said, it's not as much liquidity as what we just saw over the last couple of days here, closer towards 99 to 100,000. And instead, we actually have a little bit more liquidity starting to build to the upside again at just above the all-time high at around 108,500 to around 109,000. Around there, just above the all-time high, we're starting to build some more liquidity right there. And so usually, not always, but oftentimes the price tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. So keep that in mind. But remember, we cannot rely on just one single chart. We need to look at many different charts to find out what is most likely going to happen. And right now with this bearish divergence technically now active on the daily Bitcoin chart, we have to keep in mind that in the short term, we are currently lacking bullish momentum. And so that is the current situation in the short term for the price of Bitcoin and the longer term for the price of Bitcoin. And once again, if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, check out those links below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, you can profit from all of that price action by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.